Today, we're tackling a really big question. What on earth is the future of the university? I mean, for centuries, it's been this absolute cornerstone of society. But now, in an age of AI and just endless information, it's kind of facing an identity crisis. A massive shift is already happening, and we're going to dive into what it all means for students, for teachers, and frankly, for all of us.
Think about it. For literally centuries, the model has been so simple, right? An expert stands at the front of a room and talks, while students just sit there, listen, and take notes. But with the world's entire library of knowledge in our pockets, supercharged by AI, does that model even make sense anymore? I mean, really, is this 800-year-old tradition finally obsolete?
And this gets right to the heart of the problem. The amount of knowledge in any field is just exploding. The old model was like trying to fill a single bucket with water. Today, we're all standing in an ocean of information. And we know from study after study that you can't just pour understanding into someone's head by talking at them. So if getting the information is the easy part, the university's real job has to be something else entirely.
So what is that something else? Well, it's this pedagogical revolution that puts the learner right in the center of the action. It's about moving away from that old teacher-focused model to one that's all about the student, and it's powered by an approach called active learning. I just love this definition because it's so beautifully simple. It's not about passively soaking up information. No, it's about engaging with it, wrestling with it, actually applying it. You see, on a cognitive level, the process of trying to remember something and use it forges these super strong, durable memory pathways, way stronger than just hearing a fact once. It's really the difference between watching a video about how to play basketball and actually getting on the court and playing the game.
And what's so interesting here is how clearly this lays out the two different worlds. On one side, you have the old world of passive learning. It was all about the teacher just transmitting facts for you to memorize. But on the other side, you've got this new world of active learning, where the student is in the driver's seat, using information to solve real problems and think critically.
This chart just brilliantly illustrates that huge paradigm shift. Just look at the power dynamic. The teacher moves from being the expert on the stage to being the guide on the side. Responsibility completely shifts, empowering students to take real ownership of their own education. And assessment? It's no longer just about what you can remember for a test, but what you can do with what you know.
And look, this isn't just some trendy idea that popped up overnight. It is backed by decades of solid research. It's built on these huge principles like constructivism, the idea that we don't just absorb knowledge, we actively build it in our minds, kind of like stacking blocks. It uses assessment for learning, where feedback isn't just a final grade, but a continuous loop that helps you get better. And it's all grounded in contextual learning, which proves we learn best when we can actually see how that knowledge connects to and solves real-world problems.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does a massive shift like this actually look like on the ground? To find out, let's turn to a really fascinating case study. The higher education system in Kazakhstan, a country that is navigating this exact transition, but on a huge national scale.
So Kazakhstan's higher education sector is massive, and it's in this state of constant dynamic change. We're talking about over 120 universities, and ever since its independence, the country has been working really hard to modernize its educational models and get them aligned with international standards.
And you can see exactly where all that energy is concentrated. The major cities, Almaty, Shymkent, and the capital Astana, are the undeniable hubs of student life. They're drawing in the vast majority of the country's learners.
So what are they all studying? Now this chart tells a really compelling story about the country's priorities. A huge chunk, over a quarter of them, are in pedagogical sciences. They're training the next generation of teachers. That suggests this really deep, foundational investment in changing how education itself is delivered across the whole country. And right after that, you've got the engines of a modern economy: business, law, and engineering. It shows this dual focus on building up both human and industrial capital at the same time.
But of course, a journey this big is never without its hurdles. Like a lot of systems in transition, Kazakhstan is facing some major challenges. How do you make sure the quality is there when you're expanding access so quickly? How do you close that gap between what universities are teaching and what the job market actually needs? These are the really tough, practical questions they're trying to solve right now.
You know, Kazakhstan's story is the perfect lens for us to look through at the broader global questions about the purpose and the future of the university itself. So let's zoom out for a second and think about what's next for all of us.
And right at the heart of this whole debate, you've basically got two competing visions. There's the classic Humboldtian ideal, which sees the university as this place where intellectual and moral growth, learning for the sake of developing the whole person. But then there's the modern, market-oriented ideal,
which sees the university as an engine for economic growth, where students are basically consumers and the main goal is to pump out employable graduates.
This new landscape, it demands totally new ways of thinking about what learning even is. It's not something you just do for 4 years and then you're done. Lifelong learning is this idea that we all have to be continuously upskilling for our entire lives. And then there's life-wide learning, which recognizes that real learning happens everywhere, not just in a classroom, but at our jobs, in our communities, even with our families.
So, what's the path forward? Well, it's got to be a multi-pronged attack. Universities have to constantly update what they're teaching to stay relevant. They need to become true hubs of research and innovation. And as we've seen, it's absolutely critical that they champion active learning to build real skills. All of this has to be powered by smart investments in technology and really strong partnerships with the industries and communities they're supposed to be serving.
Which brings us right back around to our final massive question. If learning is no longer stuck in a specific time or a specific place, if it's lifelong and life-wide, then what does that mean for this institution we call university? What is its real purpose in a world that just never, ever stops changing? That is the critical question we all need to start thinking about.